And joining us now with further news out of D.C., we've got Kristin Smith. She's the executive director at the Blockchain Association. Kristin, always a pleasure to have you on. So just wanted to get some of your reaction to Congressman Jim Himes and some of the things that he had to say about the state of crypto regulation.
Yeah, well, listen, I think it was a really big week for crypto policy generally last week. Most notably, we had the reports from Biden's executive order, many of which were released on Friday. And they're really they were disappointing. Let's not sugarcoat it, right? There was a big focus, particularly on the payment side, as looking at a CBDC and also doubling down on the FedNow system. There was very little acknowledgement of the role that permissionless public blockchains and stable coins that are backed by dollars could play in this system. So I think from the crypto industry perspective, these reports were certainly disappointing. We were also disappointed to see that there was such a doubling down on the need for more enforcement action and the need for more aggressive Bank Secrecy Act regulations. I think right now in general in Washington, we are in sort of a new era of policymaking. For the first, nearly 10 years, it's really been federal and state agencies trying to interpret existing authority and apply it to the crypto ecosystem. We are now in the stage of legislation and litigation. Legislation to fill the gaps where there clearly aren't any gaps today for regulators to step in, and then litigation when the industry or other stakeholders think that the government has overstepped the authority that they have. So it's definitely a new chapter, but yeah, disappointing that the White House didn't acknowledge the full potential that permissionless blockchains can provide.
I want to touch on your point on the litigation side of things. So the SEC and Ripple are calling for an immediate ruling in their suit over whether XRP sales violated securities laws. So I'm wondering what your whole take is on that litigation.
Yeah, no, I think this is the most important case that the industry should be watching closely. I think if Ripple succeeds, they will reinforce what the Howey test means. I think the problem that we have today is the SEC takes what most case law says is a four-pronged test and tries to narrow it down to just one or two prongs being satisfied in order to be a security. So we need to get back to what the law is. I think Ripple has done an incredibly good job. They have a phenomenal legal team, both internally and externally, and they're fighting very hard. And so it will be very interesting because I think the outcome of this case could very much have an impact for the broader crypto ecosystem.
So we're now hearing, of course, that Chair Gensler threw out this line that basically, proof of stake currencies maybe might be securities.
This goes back to the Howey test issue, right? He seems to be basing that on the fact of if you stake Ether, you'll expect a profit. But that doesn't satisfy all four prongs. There's a lot of things that somebody can buy with the expectation of profit that aren't security. I bought a watch. Someday I might want to resell that for a higher number. I'm expecting a profit there. Similarly with gold or handbags, or there's a lot of artwork. It doesn't necessarily make it a security.
Except those things don't pay yield, right? I mean, that's essentially potentially what you could have, and I think that might be the issue here. That if there's any kind of yield out of it.
Investment contract analysis, you have to have the expectation of profits based off of a centralized entity. I just don't think that's the case here, and it would certainly be incredibly disruptive to the Ethereum ecosystem if that were, indeed ruling.
But is that a concern of the SEC that it might rain on your parade? But I mean, ultimately, their view is that the public at large would be better suited, would be better served if it were regulated as a security. So how would you challenge it if ultimately they do come down with this idea that proof of stake systems are basically creating securities. How do you challenge it as an association? You form
Yeah,
the PAC.
I mean, listen, if they were to come down with that ruling, you can bet within as short of amount of time as possible, we would file a lawsuit challenging that. We just think that's absolutely not true. These things have commodity-like features. Just because you can expect a profit or get some sort of reward for that, that does not make it a security. And so, yeah, we would absolutely challenge that in court.
Meanwhile, election season is in full swing. Elections are coming up in November around the corner, and the Blockchain Association has set up a new crypto industry PAC. So maybe you could tell us a bit about, what this PAC's all about and, what kind of candidates it will be supporting and heading into this election.
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, this is sort of the era of legislation and litigation, and Congress has a huge role to play in crafting the legislation that's going to move forward to ultimately regulate this industry. And so one of the things that we want to do as an industry is we want to have really strong relationships with the policymakers, with the senators and the congressmen who are crafting this. And I think one of the best tools available to build relationships is by participating in political events, fundraisers, things of that nature. So by creating a political action committee and getting funding from individuals within our member companies, that will be a tool for our team to spend more time where the members of Congress have to spend time, right? It costs a lot of money to run a campaign. They have to do it in small increments, and we want to be able to meet them where they need to be.
We got to mention that DCG is one of those member companies, DCG, a parent company of CoinDesk. Are you giving any money to Brad Sherman? Are you buying tickets to his chicken roasts and things like that?
Yeah, we will be focused on those who have been interested in crypto for a while, but also those that are
He's interested in crypto. He just doesn't like it. Maybe the donations are too small. You guys got to give more money, maybe, and that will change things.
Yeah, I don't think that money necessarily changes positions, but it does allow for the building of meaningful and constructive relationships. But yeah, at some point you have to draw the line. I don't think Brad Sherman's going to change his opinion on crypto.
Reach out, maybe, who knows?